Well, good morning, John, and thanks very much
Mel.
for agreeing to this historic interview this morning.
Well, that remains to be seen.
It's a great pleasure to introduce John to everybody. John has been a jazz guitar and banjo player in the Melbourne jazz scene and overseas and other parts of Australia for many years, and we're hoping today that we're going to reveal some of the history of John's life in jazz. So welcome, John. Now the first thing I wanted to ask you about is that how did you first become interested in jazz?
Well, I guess of the generation that came to fruition in our teenage years, early teens, when jazz was popular again, without realising there was a jazz revival, as you know. And I had an older brother who was 4 years older than me, brother Bob, and other siblings beyond that. An older brother, Tom, who's since passed away, who was nearly 19 years older, but he lived through the sort of the war years and heard music and was very much into swing music and modern jazz, or what he called progressive jazz, so that's called it then. So my brother Robert, or Bob, as everyone calls him, I call him Robert, he started collecting records when he was in his teens, young teens. He had a chemist round at a chemist shop in Paran, and he used to go and, there's a chemist shop next door to the record store. I think it was all in one, I can't remember. It was next to the town hall. So he started buying all his early jazz music and stuff. And at the time he was going to jazz dances and whatever, and I was still, I wasn't. So just through that, and I think collectively through when I got to high school, jazz was the thing for us intellectuals who wore desert boots and duffel coats and smoked pipes and whatever.
Yes.
Although I must admit, growing up in a household where we didn't have a record player until Brother Bob sort of bought one with his earnings from his chemist round. But my immediate older sister was buying 45s and all that stuff from the mid-50s, or rock and roll, Little Richard, Elvis, of course, and all that music, and there was obviously the radio as well. So that was sort of, I guess, seminal sort of influences for that generation.
Yes.
And when jazz came along, it was just a different sort of thing, but it was, it was part of our generation. So
Yes, I can relate to.
So I look over there and I see Frank Trainor's jazz preachers, and that was the first jazz dance I ever went to was Memphis in Glenferrie Road.
Yes. And you eventually finished up playing with them, didn't you?
Yeah.
We can talk about that a little bit later.
Yes.
Well, was there anybody else musical in your family?
Well, my mother played a bit of piano, but I never heard her play, and I think the story was that during the Depression her father sold the piano, so she never played again. So, but my sister tells me she could play and whatever. I think she was self-taught. She loved music, so there was that, and there was a strong musical thing in the family. But no, I was the only one who actually attempted to play. Right. Because I was sort of sad.
Did your elder brother play a musical instrument?
No, none of them did. No. But they were very encouraging when I did. Although my father, when I got my first banjo, I remember I was in our front bedroom. We lived in a small house in Thomas Street in Windsor, and my dad came in at one stage and saying, "You'll never get a tune out of that." And he was sort of right, but it wasn't very encouraging. Yeah. But he had a bit of a tin ear as far as music goes.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Whereas my mother was very, very musical.
Very encouraging.
Yeah.
So, did you actually start off with the banjo your first instrument?
Yeah, I think I was in third form, and no, my very first instrument, I think for Christmas once, I must have been about 10 or 11. I wanted a set of bongos.
Bongos?
Bongos. Which was great training for all that stuff. Yeah. So I had the bongos. I never played them with me. I just played them in the bedroom.
Yeah.
But because I think they were pigskin as well. You had to sort of keep them, warm them up to get them nice and taut.
Yes. Yep.
But I like to think that was somehow good for me in terms of rhythmically and whatever playing, and it was playing along with music essentially on the radio.
Right.
There was all those Ralph Rickman and all sort of people in their
Yep.
programs. And
Yep.
there was one on Saturday afternoon. What was it called? I used to play. Anyway, I can't think of the name, but there was a whole lot of things, as you know. So it's just accompanying sort of. Attempting to accompany
Yes.
this music.
So when you started off with your banjo, did you have lessons?
I had about 2 lessons, I think. I used to go and watch the Onions. I think what I did, I bought a book of chord shapes, and I had Frank Trainor's little chord book from, I don't know where I got it from, for tunes. It was a fairly rudimentary thing, and I learnt to play, and I'm left-handed.
Yes.
So I had to reverse everything, all the shapes, and so. But in the end, I could do it just by looking at it, type of thing, and reverse the thing visually, and do it that way. And so I just taught myself to play that way, and then it was only a matter of a couple of years before I started playing guitar. I think I got a classical guitar, and I taught myself guitar. The chord, the tuning is completely different, but I just taught myself to play those chords and whatever.
So did you have guitar lessons?
Going back to get banjo lessons, I went to Rainer Bryant, who played with the Red Onions, who I ended up replacing when he left the band. I had one lesson with him, and I forget what we did. It was fairly rudimentary. And then he put me onto another friend of his called Clive Champion. I played banjo, and I had a couple of lessons with him, but that was it. But I didn't need it after.
Do you read music?
Very rudimentarily, yeah.
Right.
Not enough to save myself on a gig to read dots and whatever. Although of late I've been playing for the last year and a bit, maybe, every week with Pierre Giacchino, guitarist. Do you know Pierre?
Yes.
Yeah, lovely chap. We'd met a few times, but as being another guitar player, we'd never hung out or whatever. So we sort of got together, and we get together every week now and just play at each other's house, and we've done a few gigs.
And you're reading charts with him?
Yeah. I mean, I can read charts in that sense,
yes.
record charts with the music, but
yes.
just to play the melody lines,
yes.
it's just a struggle. But my ears are pretty good, I think.
Obviously. That's really
and
good.
I think my pitch is good too, in terms of hearing, sort of.
Yes. Well, I think it's a special talent that that you're gifted if you have it, and it's very difficult to learn it if you don't have it, isn't it? So when I had a look at our database and I looked back on it, and there was something like 338 entries that were in there, plus about another 36 with videos. So you're hugely represented in the musical there, and I thought about it when I was thinking about other musicians you've been involved with. It's actually easier to put the ones that you haven't been involved with because it's a huge list. So could we perhaps go back to the early times, your first gigs?
I was thinking about this earlier. The first gig I ever had professionally was with it with Mike Edwards?
Yes.
He had a band called the Sidewalk Syncopators.
Yes.
Mike was a year ahead of me at Melbourne High, and he played the trumpet. And Mike was also played on the. In 1965, we made a recording with the Onions of called King Oliver Revisited, an EP. And Mike played second trumpet on that with the Onions. So that was. But this is before that. I played I was in this briefly with this band with Mike, and our very first gig that I played with him was. Oh no, the second gig. I think the first gig was at a church in Canterbury Road. And the next one was down at Geelong, and I remember none of us had a licence to drive all under 18. So we had to, Mike being the band leader, hired some guys to drive us down there in a Volkswagen Combi. And it was Club 19 in Moorabool Street, I think it was. And there was a trombone player from Geelong, and I forget who else is in the band, but anyway, that was it. But the guys who were driving us went out on the town and got involved in a fight. And one guy got a broken nose, and they still had to drive us back. I thought, this is a really good introduction to this world. Anyway, but shortly after that, I think I would have had a band at school. There's a guy called Eddie Van Rissendale, who may have known the name. He was a drummer. Jim Cotter, who now lives in Canberra and ended up, was from Melbourne High, and he ended up being head of composition at the ANU.
Right.
And Jim and I sort of reconnected about 10 years ago. Just I had an exhibition in Canberra and he turned up, so it was great. And so we were in contact with each other quite frequently when he was in town. Where was I? So they had a little band, but we never did a gig. So the first gigging band was the Syncopators.
Yes.
Yes.
Sidewalk
Syncopators. Yes.
Yes.
But we only had, I don't know how many gigs we had, but it was a nice little unit and some good players.
That was on
Peter
banjo.
McCutcheon played piano at one stage. You know Peter McCutcheon?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
They had another second trumpet player. That was on banjo. Yeah, I wasn't playing guitar then.
Yes. Well, how long after you started with the banjo did you graduate to the guitar?
I think when I was playing with the Onions.
Right.
I was playing already, but I on the first Onions tour to England in 1967, I just played banjo.
Right.
Yeah, and that's why I had that.
Yes.
That second banjo.
Yes. Yes, the one that you gave to Smacker.
The Smacker. Yeah.
Yeah, it was good.
Well, I did play a little bit on it. I did in Poland. We had doing a concert, and I had a little banjo break, and I had the second banjo there just in case, because I was breaking a lot of strings at the time.
Yep.
So this is in Gdansk, Poland, and first stroke of the banjo break was an 8-bar thing or 16-bar break. Broke 2 strings, so I did an impromptu tap dance to pick up the other one and finished it off just in time. Anyway. On the second tour to England with the Onions in 1970, by then I was playing guitar. The band was playing more sort of swingy sort of stuff as well.
Yeah. Okay. Now, amongst the people that you played with over the time, and you know, it's a huge repertoire of it. One of the ones that I think you had involved with was Alan Lee.
Yes, Alan. I met Alan at one of a jazz party. Alan Leake.
Yes.
Had a jazz party up in. I think it might have been up in, from memory, up in Royal Parade.
Yes.
At one of the Park Royal. I think, yeah.
Yep.
And it was like it was the forerunner of Bob Bernal's jazz party.
Yes.
And a similar thing, and I played, and then after that, Alan Lee approached me and he said, "Oh look, I want you to come and play in this little group I'm putting together, and play guitar, you know." And I said, "Oh yeah, just great, terrific, thank you," because he was, you know.
Yeah, he was up there with the stars.
Yeah, he had that famous album they made at the National Gallery, you know,
Yep.
and that sort of stuff. And he was great, and I owe him a great debt of gratitude because he actually allowed me to play in a more sort of upfront sort of way, you know, not being in the rhythm section, because Ken White was playing guitar, I was playing guitar, we had another guitarist at times, double bass, and Yolanda Ingley, do you know Yolanda? She sang in the band as well. We did quite a few gigs, it was great. And Alan, you know, was terrific. But he let me sort of do all this mad stuff and I didn't know what I was doing, you know. Because I wasn't, you know, I wasn't the most facile sort of guitarist, you know.
Yeah.
I was a chord player, and so I was playing sort of chord solos. And
Is that very much sort of, you were part of the rhythm section?
Yeah, trumped up banjo player, basically. Yeah.
Well, with your playing today, do you still in that there, or do you get to play with...
I get to play more sort of solo stuff, but in that context. But I don't see myself as being I mean, with the current band I have Reverse Swing, which has been going for probably a decade now, on and off. I write a lot of the tunes.
Yes.
So it's a complete ego project from my part.
Yes.
You don't have to agree so readily. No, it's just an opportunity to write. Well, I guess that happened. Alan, the last sort of Alan Brown band we played with, the 6 bells, or the 5 bells, or the 6 bells. What is it? 5 bells. 5 bells. I can't remember. Anyway, that was in '96, and Al asked us all to write something. So I put a couple of tunes together, and the first 2 things I did were transcriptions of poems by the man who made wrote the Maltese Falcon, the film.
Yes, that was Humphrey Bogart.
Yeah, he was in it. But the guy who wrote the book, oh God, he was famous American writer, film noirish sort of stuff.
Well, that can be a question.
Socialist, communist, was in trouble
Yes.
with the authorities. Anyways, the 2 poems I found in a it'll come to me, a biography on his work, and there were 2 poems written in 1927. They were sort of unpublished. They were in the University Gazette or something like that.
Yes.
One was called Yes, and one was called something else. Anyway, I put music to those, and then they were put on the album.
Yeah.
One of the albums. So I thought, oh, this is, I like this. This is fun.
Yeah.
If they sound all right, everyone seems to be agreeable with them, and they're not too shabby.
Yeah.
So
it's really good.
I just kept going.
So you've branched out because you've done quite a bit of composing as well, haven't you?
I wouldn't call it composing, but
composing. Well,
bare bones ditties, I call it.
Well,
which then they get fleshed out by a lot of help from my friends.
Yeah.
Particularly Eugene Ball, who I also most indebted
well,
to.
apart from Alan Lee and he's giving you the chance there, what other musicians have influenced your style that you've played with, or people that you've admired?
I guess, well, there's 2 things there. There's for anyone who plays an instrument, there are a host of influences, if you like, whether you're playing a trumpet or piano or whatever. I mean, I remember first going to the Onion Patch and really liking the sound of what the banjo sounded like against the sousaphone.
Yes.
It's as basic as that. Yeah. Oh, that's really pretty. I wasn't wanting to be like the guy up front doing all that stuff. It was just the sound. It was the aesthetics of it, if you like.
Yes.
It wasn't that I wanted to be a drummer and attract all the girls type of thing.
Yes.
I thought maybe I could do that on the banjo.
Yes.
Partially worked.
Yeah.
But so particularly with guitar, because the banjo wasn't a thing that was like, there's not a great body of banjo work there that you can listen to. You can listen to guitar players and their solos.
There's probably a joke in here.
Yeah, no, there's no joke, no. So listening to that sort of stuff from early Lonnie Johnson, for example, like the great solo with Johnny Sincere on Savoy Blues.
Yes.
Fantastic, Charlie Christian.
Yes.
Freddie Green, the rhythmic thing with Freddie Green, which, is sort of the core thing. And there's a whole host of guitar players from, in and around that 30s era.
Yes.
And I guess the music that interests me, and I was actually on the way here, I was listening to something, just a podcast, talking about a young contemporary jazz guitarist from America called Julian Arch, and talking about the backstory to where their music comes from. And I often talk about, when I talk to friends about this, the Beatles, for example, their harmonic sense and tunes they wrote were very much influenced by the previous generation of swing music, big band music, which they would have heard as kids, through their family, through records and stuff. So, and in my instance, growing up in a family where we didn't have a piano, we didn't have record player till quite late, but we had the radio, and my sister's record collection and brother's record collection. All that stuff from the 50s onwards, popular music which is infused from stuff previous generations.
Yes.
It's all there, you know. So
Yeah.
if I sit down to write something, it's
a product of all the influences
yeah,
of
I
all
think so.
all
It's
the
sort of an amalgam
all
of all that, without
Yeah.
consciously trying to tap into something.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that I was going to ask you a little bit about is that you've also had another career as a painter, and what else did you do during your working life, because you weren't a full-time musician?
I was teaching. I worked in art schools
Right.
professionally for 36 years or so. So I started teaching in. Well, I did some very brief secondary teaching in 1971. Then I left that because I thought it was not for me. And I worked with Frank Trainor's band for about 1.5 years or 2 years. And then I took a job in 73 teaching at what was then called Preston Institute of Technology, PIT, out of Bundoora, which is now RMIT, and I was there working full time as a senior tutor in the art school. And subsequent to that, I just went from there, and I went back to where I trained at Paran in the 1960s, and I ended up teaching there from 1976 onwards.
Right.
And then I ended up running the printmaking department there. And then when Paran merged with the Victorian College of the Arts in '92, I ended up running the printmaking department at VCA until I retired in 2007.
Right, so that was a pretty long career.
Yeah, yeah.
So music was always...
Well, music was there. What happened was that because I had a full-time job, I did gigs obviously, but I couldn't tour, I couldn't go away.
Yeah.
Right? I think at one stage I had permission to do something, and I had a career as a professional lecturer / teacher and artist, and I had, you know, part of that deal was that you had to keep your practice up and all that sort of stuff. So it wasn't until I probably stopped teaching in 2007 that now music has become much more. I've got more time to do it. I've been much more ingrained in doing that sort of stuff.
Yes, yeah. So it's you.
And also I've become probably, you know, hopefully better at it, and accepted that I'm a musician.
Yes.
Seriously, that when I was playing, well, years ago when I was teaching and I'd do gigs at festivals with bands, and you know, you get a little thing that says musician, and okay, I started believing it after a while because I didn't have any formal training.
Yes.
I'm self-taught. I never saw
Yes.
myself as being legitimate in that sense.
Yes, I understand.
Yeah.
Tell us about your year with Frank Trainor's band. What was it like to work with Frank?
Oh, it was great. It was a terrific experience. It was well, again, Frank was one of those people that you'd go to see. As I said, Memphis was the first gig I went to, and he was playing. Roger Bell. Graham Coyle was on piano, and it's a really nice band. At the church hall at St George's Church in Glenferrie Road, next to the town hall. On the other side of the police station, in the middle, was the Malvern Town Hall, where we used to have rock and roll gigs. They were dangerous times.
Yes.
You know, there were all sorts of groups of guys wanting to chase you down the street and kick your head in or whatever, you know. But no, it was good because there was a lot of work, a lot of little tours around Victoria, doing school gigs and stuff, you know, daytime gigs, school concerts, history of jazz type of thing. And Frank was always a very intelligent man, I think. I remember he used to, because I didn't drive in those days, so
Yeah.
Frank would.
Was he a hard taskmaster?
He could be, but he was also very kind and argumentative. Not with me, but I remember seeing him on gigs arguing with proprietors and stuff and whatever, you know, things not being quite good enough, and you know,
He wasn't easily pushed around.
No.
Very good. Now, tell us about...
And also I met Peter Gordian in that.
Right,
contest,
yes.
So we became good mates.
Yeah, that's good.
A lot of other people too.
Yeah.
You know.
The other thing was your time with the Red Onions. So tell us a little bit about working with Alan and the other boys in the band.
Well, it was like joining the Beatles, you know, when I was 17 or something, or whatever else. I was in year 12 or year 11 or whatever. I was in the band with that band that had Jerry Humphries in it, Kim Lynch, Ian Klein on piano. Three guys, when they left in '65 to form the Loved Ones, which then they became sort of #1 hit sort of rock and roll players. And I said, how does this happen? How can they play rock and roll? Anyway. No, I mean, not why, but to sort of going from playing 1920s jazz, sousaphone, to electric bass.
Yes.
Anyway, Kim, bless his heart, who I've seen occasionally.
Yes.
Since.
So when you did that tour with the Onions.
Well, that was with the band Reformed then.
Yes.
Because there was. I might say the little thing. Quite often on information regarding the Onions, I've seen online, they sort of say that the Jerry Humphries and Ian Klein and Kim Lynch left the band to form the Loved Ones, and then so and so joined the band, and they sort of include me in joining the band after. I was already in the band.
Yes.
Because then when they left, Alan asked me if I knew any tuba players, and I had my friend Bill Morris at high school, and I said, oh, he's got a tuba, he could play, he looks good. And so Billy Morris played the tuba, and then shortly after that, I think before that, Rowan Smith played with us, because Rowan was on that recording. We did a King Oliver Revisited. Nick Polides played clarinet. Zeke was on sousaphone. Mike was, as I said, on second trumpet. And that was before the other guys, before Richard Miller joined the band.
Right.
And before Bill Morris joined the band.
Okay. I wanted to ask you a little bit about when you went on your overseas tour. You're part of that, you went to UK, but you also went to Poland.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, that was very exciting. I think it was September, October, '67. We got to. I think we'd been in London and England since maybe April, May, or something like that. So we had a bit of time. We did, driving up and down the length and breadth of Britain to do gigs. Our agent had this festival called the Jazz Jamboree. It had been running since just after the Second World War, apparently, quite a while. And it was a real eye-opener going there, because all that was behind the supposed Iron Curtain. There was a lot of incredible energy, a lot of young people, a lot of youth. I remember when we met young people, we'd been invited back to their apartments or whatever. The thing that really impressed me is that there were lots of books everywhere, the bookshelves,
yes,
which was sort of unusual. It wasn't like Australia. But that was great. There were some great acts there. We saw the big thing for us was seeing, and we went there as a band playing. So I'll just qualify. The festivals had a mix of sort of traditional music, as well as contemporary, what was then contemporary jazz. So we go there as a sort of band playing, 1920s, 30s, whatever. And then we came across a chap called Roland Kirk.
Yes.
We'd never heard of him. And at the concert hall was a place called the Palace of Culture. It had a big proscenium stage. And when we went to see Roland Kirk, because we'd heard this is just as a top act, there was a table in the middle of the stage, just festooned with brass, saxophones and instruments. And then stage right, I remember hearing this drone, the saxophone droning, two saxophones droning at once. It might have been three. And this figure came out, dressed in a black plastic boiler suit, and with all things dripping off him, like some few instruments dripping off him. Black beret, that was his trade thing, like a nut white black beret, black sunglasses, and feeling his way out, because he was blind.
Yes.
Feeling his way to the stage. And then I think the band must have been set up behind, but in my memory I can't remember the band. I just see this table with this stuff on it and this figure walking out and this drone, and then they're just starting to play, and it's like a whole new world just opened up. It's fantastic. It's really great.
So he was a major influence.
We actually toured with him. We did a little three town of city tour, ran in a bus.
Yes.
And that concert, what we played, we had a really good manager. He managed to get us on TV, and also on the record. They put out an album, a 12-inch album. One side I think was Polish musicians and mix, and I think we had about, I don't know whether we had half a side or a quarter of half a side. We did really well.
Did you actually get to play with Roland Kirk?
No, but they would have heard the band, and I remember I was sitting in the bus, and his wife, Edith, her name was, because he wrote a song called "Don't Cry, Beautiful Edith," gave me some sheet music of a song called "Blue Roll." She said, Roland wants me to pass this on to your clarinet player, which I did. I could have kept it, but I did the right thing. So it's a chart, a handwritten chart. I don't know whether he'd written it or had it written out for him. I don't know. He was blind, but anyway. So that was nice. But the guys were great, It was very nice.
That influenced you.
Yeah.
The other ones that I know from sort of overseas that you played with is the Hot Jazz Alliance, Andy Schulman, and Josh Duffy.
Josh Duffy, yeah.
Yeah, so I know you played with them up at Noosa, but you also played with them overseas, didn't you?
Yeah, we did Jason and the other guys organised a tour to America to play at the Bix Festival
in Devonport.
In Devonport, yeah. And then we went from there to England and did some gigs there. But we started off in New York. We actually played at the what do you call it, where Wynton Marsalis plays.
The Lincoln
The
Centre.
Lincoln Centre. We played the Lincoln Centre. We played the Dizzy's Coca-Cola, I think. We played on a Monday night. Did a couple of sets there, which is great.
Yeah.
Had a good time there, and then we drove from New York down through Pennsylvania, did gigs along the way, all the way up to Detroit, to Chicago, did gigs there, and then down to Davenport for the festival. So it was fantastic. It was a great way to see America, and just see that landscape, and which we've all seen on film for years and years and years, and you don't actually go out on the road, so it was a wonderful experience. And also seeing great musicians and great bands, and particularly hearing music, say Paul Whiteman type music, played note for note from charts,
from the charts.
With bands here.
That's I've been able to do it. I noticed also another one that you played with was I recall was Art Hody's.
Oh yeah, that's a dim memory, because I think there was a set and I played a couple of.
That was at the Ballarat Jazz Convention, 65 I think, wasn't it? Or
no, it was later than that.
Later than that?
It would have been late 70s.
Yeah, 70s, yeah. Okay, that was really good. Well, you certainly had a wonderful musical career about it. So if you were asked about what would be some of the highlights of your career, John, with all the people that you played with?
Well, it's sort of not, it's probably more to do with being in a place and the experience of being in a place playing music, like, particularly with the Onions in Europe.
Yes.
Numerous gigs, not because they were big deal things, but they were just fabulous occasions, we did a gig, for example, I wouldn't call it a highlight, but it was a great thing to talk about. We played at the Opera House when Max Roach came out to do one concert, and we were the support band, things like that. But okay, you could say that's a highlight because he played on a gig with Matt Roach,
Yeah.
but in terms of playing music, it's probably touring with the Onions, being in the band, you know, having that whole life.
Yes.
And a life of memories to do with all the guys, and you know, some of us who are no longer with us. Living in London in that period, you know.
Yes.
Regretting things I didn't do. If I had a time machine, what would I do? You know, that sort of stuff.
That's right, exactly.
Going to Poland, you know, we went to Hungary in 1970, did some gigs there. This is before, you know, when they were still behind the Iron Curtain, and it was all sort of, had to, you know, mind your P's and Q's and whatever.
The wreckage of war.
Yeah, all that, So it's a great privilege, you know. And then just playing with great players, and it's always fantastic playing with really good musicians, you know.
Yes,
you know,
because
it's best to be the worst musician in the band. That's, you know,
yes,
from my perspective.
to be able to lift yourself up.
Yeah.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about your own band, because for most of your career, you really played in other people's bands.
As the Americans say, a sideman. Yeah.
Sideman.
Yeah.
So how did you come up with the idea of your own band as Reverse
I think
Swing?
what happens, it might have been Diana Allen. She had this gig happening, organised a gig at the Seamen's Mission.
Yes.
Back in it must be about 15 years ago now. They had it's got a really lovely little Spanish mission sort of courtyard there.
Yeah.
And they had a little summer gig there, like Friday late Friday afternoons, early evening. You know. I put a little quartet together with just trumpet, clarinet, double bass and guitar basically, and just went from there and just called it Reverse Swing. Somewhere along the line, it was called something else initially, and then somewhere along the line the name Reverse Swing came along because it was I think maybe at that stage I might have been playing cricket, and I started playing cricket when I was 60, by the way.
Right.
I stopped work, stopped teaching, and a good friend of my wife's, Carolyn, she was a journalist, and she worked at The Age and various in the Australian and whatever, and she was a friend of Gideon Haigh, you know,
Author.
Esteemed author and cricket writer who's who I see regularly. And so Reverse Swing sort of it's a good name for a band or whatever. So that's how that came about. And subsequent to that, I've just I don't know, just got more involved with it, more serious about it. Started writing tunes, etc., and then got reasonable responses, good reviews from the CDs and stuff.
Yes.
Got a lot of play.
Well, this is the one here that I had, which is your first one, which is the past matinee.
Post matinee.
So tell us about how you people then selected. I know Michael McQuaid was heavily involved.
I was playing with Mike already, so I mean, obviously I didn't put the band together to make the recording. The band already existed. Matt Bowden, the piano player, I met through Lee Barker. Lee Barker was our original bass player, but he moved overseas.
Yes, he's been living in Paris for
10 years now. Yeah.
He and Darren.
And who else have we got? Eugene.
Yeah. Well, Eugene's he did a lot of the arrangements for you.
Yeah, you did a lot. Yeah. Part of the horn arrangements and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's good. And of course, Howard Cairns, wonderful bass player, and
Howard also played with the Onions as well, because Howard joined the Onions on our 1992 tour.
And your second one, which was Early Risers. Tell us about a little bit about that. You've got Sam Coovers on that.
Well, the thing is, one of the difficulties of running a band. Not that I ever wanted to run a band, apart from getting people to the gigs, you know, is finding the musicians you want to play with, and whether they're available. And our piano player, Matt, you know, we sort of share the piano chair these days, I guess. Matt lives in Hobart.
Yes.
And it's not always, you know, I always tend to give him first option to come. But so I think you suggested Sam at one stage, and I love Sam's playing, and I hadn't known Sam as such. I've seen him play at many festivals and gigs and stuff. And he was gracious enough to sort of say, yeah, sure, and come along and likes some of the songs, and so it's terrific. I feel blessed.
Yes, well...
And also he brings a different flavour, because I want a more contemporary feel for it, rather than being like I don't want it to be like a swing trad band. It's like, it's not trad jazz as far as I'm concerned. It's music, and it's whatever. And those people bring their own flavours to it. So
exactly,
it's like James McCullough had a trombone.
Well, one of the things that I've often wondered about is that, have you got a view about the future of jazz in Australia?
No.
No. Has it got a future?
Well, music has a future,
yes.
and music changes, and jazz has changed. Jazz is not fixed.
Yeah.
So, and even to define what jazz is a hard enough thing, because you look at things, jazz festivals now, and they're sort of, half the bands seem to be pop bands or rock bands or whatever.
Yes.
But no, it's just different. The thing about playing music is that you can't get out of your own skin.
Yes.
So how you form is how you form. So
yes.
I mean, I could consciously say I'm going to go and try and play like that now,
yes.
and learn all those things, but
yes.
it's not.
Yes.
It's not an organic thing.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to play with people who may come from that territory or whatever, and can bring something to it and
yes.
back it up.
Yes,
which is great. So you're actually making something new, and that's why I write original music.
Yes.
Because it doesn't have a roadmap.
Yes.
And then we make the roadmap, and we make the thing. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't work, okay, well, we'll try something else. But if you can give it a life, and I often say it's just like these tunes are like bare bones, a skeletal, if you like, for things to be
and you
added
build
onto it.
and you
build
build
by playing them and whatever, and find if there's anything there.
Yeah.
So that's it's like making pictures for me. It's the same thing.
Yes. When you look at the music of the trad bands and many that you're involved with over the years, do you think they have a sound that's recognisably Australian?
It's hard to tell. I think with the early bands they did.
Who do you mean by the early bands?
Graham Bell and Frank Johnson's band and those bands.
How would you is there any way you can define it?
No, not really. I think. Well, say for example with the Onions, because that's almost an early band now. There was an energy. There was youthful energy, and it was everyone was young, and we're all baby boomers. We're just barely out of our nappies.
Yes.
And as what apparently when they were in Sydney just before I joined the band, Ken Collier described that he was there for the convention. Described as two-beat insanity, which is great,
Yeah.
But everything was too fast because it was just like youth, on steroids.
Yes. Well, it's really good. Now,
I mean, Aid, for example, Aid, I think quite consciously made music that alluded to a sense of Australia,
Yes.
Hello Jim Eadie, for example, the guy in the telephone box.
Yes. Yes.
It's things like that, and they were sort of with local titles and names and all phrases, which gives it a particular flavour.
Yes.
And maybe there's a way of, it's hard. It's like trying to say, well, Australia demographically has changed enormously in our lifetime.
Yes.
And will continue to do so. There are lots of voices at the time which become Australian, and whatever that is. And it's never fixed, it's just,
Yes, yeah. So it's a sound that developed and it's an interesting take. Could we just perhaps have a bit of a discussion and have a look at a couple of your instruments, John?
Yes. I'll hop up on the table now, Doctor.
That's right. Tell us about this wonderful instrument here.
Well, this is a Gibson L5 guitar, which from the year of mint is 1937. I picked this up from as I was saying earlier, through when Alan Brown's young daughters were at kindergarten, a woman, another mother there, had mentioned to Alan or Margie that she had a guitar that belonged to her father that he'd brought back from America in 1940 and had lived under a bed for decades apparently. So I had a look at it, got an option to buy it. I had to go and get it valued, all that sort of stuff. I did all that, and I bought it, and then I had it restored, and so it's, put it back into playable condition. So
yes, and you mentioned before that you're left-handed. So
yes,
how does that affect the way the strings are?
Well, the strings are set up in the same as per a normal right-handed player. So with the bass string on the closest to the player. On the bottom.
So in other words, they're reversed.
The reverse, yeah. So
okay. Well, we might get you to, if you
strum something
so we can just hear the nice sounds. Very nice. That's lovely, with a flourish at the end.
Yeah.
Now, what about
that? You want to know what it's called? That is called "Only Sleep Cures Fatigue." Have you ever seen that road sign?
No.
That's a road sign. On the highways, you occasionally see a road sign that says "Only sleep cures fatigue."
Yes, that's right. So this is that's one of your comments.
Only sleep cures fatigue. Only love my disease.
Did you get royalties from the TAC for that one?
No, that one has just been. It was sort of. Oops, sorry. Written in the sort of spirit of a Django-y sort of thing. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Anyway, there you are.
That's good. Now, what about the banjo? Are we going to just have a last little look at that one?
Yeah. Now, this one I got in America. I bought this in San Francisco. I was with Joe Stevenson at the time. Went to some banjo haunt.
Yes.
And so that's a 1927 Vega artist.
Vega artist.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a beautiful,
it's a nice looking
lovely
thing,
sounding, very nice condition. Was that how you bought it,
yes,
John?
it was, yeah. It needs a little bit of work. The action's a little bit high, but it's a bit hard to play. It's sort of nice, this period of banjo making, they're quite ornate. It's nice carved.
Yeah, it's beautiful with all this work here, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's got some lovely inlay, like the inlay in the back. You see that?
Yep. Yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. Well, we've covered a fair bit of ground with all this, John, and it's really been terrific to be able to get a picture of what you've been able to do. Is there any little bits that I've missed that you think that...
of what stays on the road? What happens on the road stays on the road.
Stays on the road.
So I'm not divulging any trade secrets here.
Trade secrets. Oh, that's really good. Well, I would just thank you very much for the time and effort that you've
bring
this in there. It's been a great privilege.
No, it's a great privilege for me to come.
You've been listening to the life and the story of jazz of John Scurry, And thank you very much, John. It's been a great pleasure.
Thanks, Mel. Thanks.